Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a corner of my beauty space where I'm going to be going back down to the floor and going through some eyeshadow palettes with you. I know in my last video when I was doing the declutter, I was talking about maybe moving on to complexion products, and I desperately need to do that too. Primers, concealers, foundations, all of that. But I am struggling more so with my eyeshadow palettes right now, to be honest. And I have enough that I kind of want to break this into a couple of sections. I'm thinking at this moment, small eyeshadow palettes in one video and then big eyeshadow palettes or larger ones in another. One, to help wrap my brain around it, but two, I don't know if y'all would watch, maybe even if I did the whole kit and caboodle in one big video. And I feel like I'm going to be too wishy-washy if I throw too much at me at once. So I feel like doing it in bite-sized, approachable sections might actually help me to actually pay attention to what it is I'm talking about, really think it through, and then either declutter it or keep it. And I know this is probably going to be one of the hardest ones because y'all know I love my eyeshadow palettes. I do. And there's some that are newer that maybe I haven't given enough opportunity to, or I bought them thinking once the weather gets warmer, like in spring and summer, I'll be able to pull out more. So I'm gonna have a lot of thoughts. So I'm thinking today, let me just show you what we're working with so you can get an idea of what I'm saying. This right here is one of my eyeshadow palette drawers, and it was organized at one point. If you saw my videos when I was moving, I really took some time to organize these, but as you can see, as I kept getting more eyeshadow palettes and more makeup, things started shifting. So this is more my, I don't know, middle size, like full size, but these are some smaller ones. And then down here is where I have even more palettes, and maybe down here is where I kind of started to toss things maybe I wasn't using as much or wasn't loving, or they're too big to put in this drawer because of size. So there's a lot to go through here. So rather than try to maybe bite off more than I can chew right now and I'm ready to process, I think I'm going to start with the smaller palettes. Well, do I want to start with smaller palettes? Now I'm sitting here arguing with myself, as you know I do. I'm worried I'm not going to be getting rid of as many smaller palettes, but I could surprise myself. I'm just going to take this as it comes, but I'm thinking that's how I'm going to do this, is in sections. So grab your tea, grab your snack, grab your water, get comfy, get cozy, and declutter with me. I feel like this is a spring cleaning. Yes, do it with me. I don't have a drink. Hold on, let me go get a drink. That's better. Grab your tea, grab your snack, grab your water, get comfy, and let's do this together. Cheers. Okay, I cannot tell a lie. I almost, this close, pulled out every single eyeshadow palette just now. But then I remembered all of my small palettes are in this little container here. So I know once I start getting into all of this, it's going to be a nightmare. So it's going to be more than I'm thinking. So that's also why I just kind of stopped. And I may even... Some of these I'm realizing are a little bit bigger, like full-size palettes here. So what I may end up doing is pulling some more aside once I kind of spread all these out. So now I'm going to, I guess, take every one of these babies out so we can look at everything, because I find touching everything helps me to declutter and really hone in on each individual piece. So let's do that. Okay, you guys, these are all of my smaller palettes. We'll call it that in air quotes, smaller, because I know some of them are a little bit maybe bigger. I haven't decided if I'm going to do these just yet, but I want to kind of go through my smaller palettes and really see what I think. Also, there are some liquid shadows in here and Colourpop singles, which I do kind of add those in to this category all the time. So I just thought it makes the most sense for me to figure out what am I keeping, what am I getting rid of. And some of these are very old and well-loved palettes. Like these are some OG Colourpop palettes that have gone through multiple declutters with me and I have kept. So this is going to be, this is going to be hard. This is not for the faint of heart. So I guess let's get started. I feel like I should start over here for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. This one's actually newer, so I guess we could jump in here. I just recently got this Colourpop Deja Brew eyeshadow palette, and this palette is very neutral, very cool toned. It's got a few pops of warm in it, but this honestly disappointed me. I just purchased this from Target. I loved that Colourpop was going into Target. Definitely going to be an affordable but amazing brand, so I was excited to see this at Target, but for some reason, we all know sometimes Colourpop's formula is really hit or miss, and it just makes me nostalgic for these babies who might be old, but were and are, at least, amazing. So this makes it so hard. I think for now, because this is so new, I'm going to put this in the maybe declutter pile and compare it to like the shades in it to some other things, because what really frustrated me is like salted caramel here is beautiful and so is sweet foam, but the sparkles in it, I don't know if you can tell in the pan right now, there are some sparkles in it. They end up in your crease because this doesn't last. It definitely fluffs around on your eyes quite a bit throughout the day. Super disappointing. But it is so new that I don't know if I've actually gotten to touch into all the shades yet. So this is going to go in like a maybe pile for me at the moment. Colourpop Off Melrose palette. This one is also a bit more recent, especially compared to some of the older things in my collection. I really like how neutral this is, but it's got warm tones. It's got some fun pops of some vibrancy for summer and spring. It's also got some copper tones. We do have a glitter in here that, you know, maybe isn't always our favorite, but look how pretty that is. Oh man, I'm already starting the swatching. It's gonna be a swatchy day, I think. I'm pretty much saying I'm gonna keep this one for now. I think it's really pretty, really nice, and I think she's gonna be worth trying this spring and summer. These are gonna be hard, and I'm gonna put it up front. This is gonna be hard. This is the Yes Please palette. I always wanted to call it the Cute AF because that's what's on the front. The You Had Me at Hello from Colourpop, and the Element of Surprise. Who still has these in their collection? If so, you get me. You understand me. This is back when their formulas, like every time, were pretty much on point. I'm sure there was a few one-offs now and then, but like this was when like we all fell in love with Colourpop back in the day. Yes, she's messy and the component is white, so she looks even messier here. The You Had Me at Hello palette. So good. And the thing is about these, this is the Element of Surprise palette. The thing is, every time I've gone back into them, they always perform, even though they're older. And that's why they're still in my collection. I mean, when did I buy these? 2017 maybe? Well, look what I just said. I said they've performed when I've used them, but look at that. Well, I don't really use this shade much, which might be why I don't notice that. But ooh, okay, this may help me to declutter. I'm just going to do some random swatching right now and just kind of see how I feel, because the reality is I do every now and again pop into these, but it has been a while. And because of the size of them, ooh, that's pretty. Because of the size of them, it's not like they are top of mind. They can get moved around really easily. Ooh, that's pretty too. All right, so far, the one that's really getting me is the You Had Me at Hello. Yeah, you still have me at hello. Still super pigmented. Look at that. Some shades are to the point where they're better than others. And I'm not trying to declutter things just for the sake of decluttering. I want to make sure I'm actually not, one, using it, or two, it's not performing and it's aged out, you know. All right, they're just going to stay for now. If you really thought, Nichole, you weren't going to get rid of these anyway, you're right. They're all swatching. There's some that are better than others, but for the most part, they're still doing really well. So I'm going to keep them. Okay, the Star Wars Mandalorian palette, super cute. I've had her a little bit now, but I'm not going to be getting rid of her because she has some shades in her that I love and I will probably use throughout the year. Ooh, the Mar palette. So like the Mar palette and the High Tide palette. The Mar palette I got a while back, and which one is this? This is the High Tide palette. I got this more recently, I want to say within the past year. I clearly have a type. I mean, that color is on my nails. I love a good teal. I love a good blue in the jewelry I'm wearing. So no one is shocked that I have a type and like a good aqua turquoise color, right? Right. So, whew, holy smokes. Holy smokes. Wow. Ooh, these blues do not mess around. These are some summer staples for me, so yeah, they're staying. Colourpop, she's hard to get rid of because she lasts the test of time. When they're good, they're good. When they're not, they're not. The Nude Mood, I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm gonna be like on the fence about. This one is one I reach into pretty regularly when I need a fast, easy palette, so she's a keeper. Already know it. So I've done no real decluttering and I have a maybe so far. So we're not doing so good at first. We gotta really get into this. All right, okay. Let's look at Beauty Bakery. These are some palettes that I got from BoxyCharms, BoxyLuxes, the Boxy, now Ipsy brand. So I have a love-hate relationship with some of these because they're pretty good. This is the Sour You Doin' palette. It looks like a Colourpop palette I just talked about, doesn't it? It looks like the Yes Please palette. Yeah, I mean, they're like, this was like the muse for it. I can't, oh, goodness gracious me. I think I got this last summer too, and I was like, oh my gosh, guys, I love this palette. It's so great. It's like I hadn't even put together. Oh yeah, it's because it's like a sister version of what you already have and love every summer. So funny. And then this is the Proof is in the Puddin'. I think these are kind of more hit or miss. What I know about the Beauty Bakery. Dang it. Now I'm stuck again. Comparing, kind of seeing what I'm already said I was keeping. Some similarities. And there's only so many things that are before it starts getting repetitive. And it's also why it's good to touch things. I feel like this one is not doing as well. I'm sitting here swatching on my arm and it's not giving a great pull. It's not as opaque, especially compared to all of the things that I'm just like still feeling stained from with the even older Colourpop over here. I'm trying to remember what I said in my reviews, and I think as much as I like a color story like this, neutral, approachable, everyday, I feel like the product is just not as good as some of the other things that I already have in my collection. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and declutter this. I'm going to find a friend or family member, someone to give this to, because she's practically new. And now I'm just sitting here going, what did I think of this one? Because I remember liking it enough. I need to wash my hands from those blues. Comparing the yellows. I actually had to go wash my hands because I just had too much dark pigment on my fingers and I couldn't properly swatch. Oh, this video is going to be harder than I thought, you guys. Let's see here. Y'all, the Yes Please palette is not doing so hot. All right, the neutrals in the Colourpop palette, the older one, are not doing as well. And I have a lot of neutrals in my collection. So really, I'd be keeping this for vibrancy. Dang it, I'm freaking out right now because I'm thinking about getting rid of the Yes Please palette and I don't know how to feel. I also know I've got a Huda palette up here that I got to talk about that is not too far off. But I was just thinking how much I don't think the Beauty Bakery line is as good as my OG Colourpop, but these are older. Colourpop, Beauty Bakery. Colourpop, Beauty Bakery. Ooh, that one did not. Well, it's a different tone, but Colourpop, Beauty Bakery. For right now, they're both gonna stay because I don't know what to do and I don't want to make a regret because I've had this for so long, but I'm not mad at this one. I remember liking this last summer, so for now, that's what's happening. Just for now, we'll come back to it. All right, let's move on because I'm losing my mind already and we're too stuck already. All right, let's look at two Alamar palettes. So my camera overheated and I needed to take a quick break, so I actually had more time to kind of wash my hands, think about this some more, and I'm gonna get rid of the Yes Please palette. I know she is nostalgic for me and I absolutely have great memories with her, but I really don't need two palettes that are very similar. Even though the Yes Please palette does have more shades, I can achieve pretty much what I'm doing with this palette, with this, and a wide variety of other palettes that I have. So rather than holding on to something from like 2016, 2017, I kind of just need to start moving forward with my makeup collection, and I am nostalgic, but at the same time, I don't want to just hold on to stuff just for the sake of stuff if I'm not going to use it. Even though I was like, well, yeah, but I have been using it, but it's only secular. It's only like in summer or spring or if I'm wanting a specific look. And I can achieve that with something that's newer and maybe, you know, not as old. My arm is starting to itch, so I'm just like, what did that? I'm not sure. Could just be the abrasiveness, but I just need to let it go. So, all All right, that's 2 palettes down. Only 2. I gotta do better. If you guys saw my lipstick collection video, I was ruthless in there. I need to delve into that. So what I was saying before my camera overheated was that this is the Alamar collection that I have. This is volume 1. I believe this is not a volume, but the Spanglish palette. So I fell in love with Alamar when I got this first palette, the volume 1. And I will say, I believe these shimmers are better than the mattes. These shimmers are really where this palette stepped out into its own and made a name for itself. Especially with the shade El Malcon. I feel like this was such a unique shade when this came out, and the way it's pressed with some pearls in it, it is stunning on the lids. She's really pretty. She has performed really well through time, and I only have so much on my finger, and look how much there still is. Like, I could coat my whole self with just this. It is so pretty. La Costa is also such a beautiful shade. I thought this looks great on the lids for a natural look. I would pop into these for shimmers more than anything else for a really long time, and I still think of it as like I need something special. Ooh, maybe come over here. Now, it has been way less, I will say, that I have remembered to use these shimmers. El Malcon is a shade that is so unique and special that I feel like I am going to be keeping this. Not just for that, though, but Celia works really beautifully, and so does this other more deep blue. These are blues that I know I can trust. These blue and greens here. And they last, and they perform so well. So I am going to keep this palette. However, I am going to be decluttering the Spanglish palette. Again, I will say shimmers are better than the mattes for sure. I'm not someone who gravitates a ton to pink and purples. This one is very messy. She kind of came to me a little broken, and she just keeps slowly breaking apart the older she gets. I'm not reaching for this, and I do have some other palettes with some purple, so I'm gonna get rid of this. We gotta get on a roll here. We gotta start getting on a roll. This is so much harder for me though. All right, I'm gonna reach up here really quickly. This is Rare Beauty. This is Selena Gomez's line. This is something I got from, I think, a Boxy Luxe, maybe a premium box. This is the palette Confident Energy. I really loved this shimmer palette. I like delving into this. It's a one-off palette. She's kind of one of those things where I keep her in that separate section of my eyeshadow palettes, because this is where I'm like, okay, this is the topper. This is how I finish a look. I love the options that I have to play in here. We've got some golds, we've got some blues, we've got a little bit more neutral tones. Also, Team Selena, so we're keeping this. Love her. That was my pop culture political moment there. Moving forward, let's see about, while we're over here talking about one-offs, I feel like this is also a one-off palette. This is the Fenty Beauty palette. I talked about this a ton when I got it because I couldn't believe I could get a full look with this tiny little palette. She's like such a little muffin compared to everything else in my collection. This one is called, this is some of her Snap Shadows, and this is 7 Cadet. I couldn't believe how good these were, how blendable, how fluffy. I still go into this a lot of times if I'm wanting to have something that's easy for a crease, that I can trust, whether I'm using something newer to test out something that's like a shimmer or an eyeliner or something, but I know it's not going to pull away or be the problem if I'm testing new stuff. So I am going to keep this because she's really good. I have not been using this Ace Beauté Falling For You palette. She's really pretty. I just don't find I have been reaching for such dramatic shades. I really don't. It's not that I don't love the Ace Beauté line. I fell in love with the Ace Beauté line through BoxyCharm and getting some of their older palettes. I just don't find myself reaching for this, even though this cider shade is one that I do find to be really stunning. I say that, and then the swatch on my finger didn't look that good. Ooh, but she's not too far off from El Malcon. But I'm not loving this. I'm not reaching for this, so I'm gonna go ahead and declutter her. Huda. I have 3 of the mini palettes here. I have the Amethyst Obsessions, the Coral Obsessions, and the Mauve Obsessions. I've had these for a while. I started this collection when I had Ipsy, ironically enough, and then I got rid of Ipsy, and now Ipsy is coming back to me through BoxyCharm. It's so funny. I loved the Mauve Obsessions palette. I feel like these still perform pretty well, although I have not really been reaching for these, if I'm gonna be honest. It could be because I've had so much eyeshadow palette like overload going on that I just haven't thought of them. But I think I can easily say I'm gonna get rid of the Amethyst Obsessions. She's really pretty. But I really found I only kind of pop into her from time to time, and probably in less than a year. So I'm going to get rid of this one and give this to someone who would probably love it way more than me. And I really loved the Coral Obsessions. I think if you've been with my channel for a while, you know that warm tones and corals were always my jam for a really long time for eye looks, but it's something I've kind of grown out of, and I only do pinks and corals from time to time. Again, this looks a lot similar to the wrestling that I just did with the Beauty Bakery Sour You Doin' palette. Not as much because there's less pink tones in this, but I don't find myself reaching for this, so I'm just storing it at this point. So I kind of need to pass her on, but these are still really quality. If you can get something like these Huda Beauty Obsessions palettes on a deal, they're really great quality. This is the Mauve Obsessions. I am going to keep this one, even though it's so funny. I don't feel like I go into purples and mauves a ton. This one is like my obsession, because that's the name. It's my exception. I don't know if it's because I find them really easy to blend or to use with other palettes or on its own, but this one for some reason just keeps standing out to me as a palette I like, so I'm going to hang on to her. All right, this is so old in my collection, and it was almost like I was proud of how long I've had this, and it was performing so well, and she still is. I mean, the IBY Beauty, this is the Three's Company Trio palette. You can see I've hit pan on 2 of these shades here. The main reason I was loving this was because I love this shimmer shade. I think she's still so creamy, so blendable. Oh, she's really pretty. And then this shimmer shade here in the middle, it's gotten less creamy buttery over the years, obviously, because I have had this IBY Three Companies palette since I had my first year on YouTube. I want to say within the first 6 months of my YouTube channel, which was 6+ years ago, almost 7 years ago now, I got this palette, and I've not finished her up, but I did use her enough that you see multiple things of pan on her. Dang it, and look how good those 2 swatches look. And I do still from time to time think, oh yeah, this is going to be really easy. I will say the matte shade isn't as easy as it used to be because she's a lot more chunky now. She maybe just doesn't perform as well with a brush. I'm struggling with what to do, honestly. Okay, the camera was overheating again, so I took the opportunity to pull out some more swatches from some of the adjacent palettes, thinking maybe some of these would be like exact dupes or close. And they are close in some capacity here on my hand, if you can see how shimmery the whole thing is right now. But there's none of them with that same tone. They're still blending well. Dang it, I really thought I was about to get rid of this, but because I just swatched it and realized how well she still performs and I have used her, I'm gonna hang on to her too. Oh my gosh, this is called the Watch Me Struggle. Okay, I've got some other Wander Beauty palettes that are going to be in the bigger eyeshadow palette Declutter. But this one, who remembers my dear obsession with the Wander Beauty Getaway face palette, essentially, because this is an eyeshadow palette, but it also has a blush and a highlighter. Fun fact, Nichole rarely ever used this as a highlighter. I have always used this on the lids, and I still will pull just this out for the lids because I think this goes so well with my skin tone and my base. As you can see, I've used this shade entirely up almost. I'm still scraping the edges of this. I need to get another one. I always say that every time I talk about this. She's not in danger of going anywhere, mostly because I still use her, even as a one-off palette if I need to. So good. I need another replacement just because I use that one shade so much, and I love that shade. Okay, I need to get rid of this. This is the Wet n Wild single in the shade Brulee. I don't need to get rid of this because it's bad. I need to get rid of this because this was a 2015-2016 OG, and I have 2 more of these that I've never touched, brand new. So I need to just get rid of this because this is old, but it's a great creamy base if you need something to start your lid, which is definitely how we used to do it back in the day, but it's still how I like to do it. Even just to clean up an eye look. Oh, I'm using this on top of another shimmer. Just to clean up an eye look if I've gone too crazy in my crease or something, this is a perfect skin tone for me, which is probably why you're like, I don't see any swatching, Nichole, because it's really good, creamy base, but it can also help you clean up stuff. But this one's old. I have 2 others. I'm trying to figure out where to go next, honestly, and maybe I'll just go where my heart goes here. So this is my Tarte Leave Your Mark palette. I have said for years how much I loved this palette, and it's so true. But I have found I'm not reaching for it anymore because I have so many more neutrals, whereas like this was like one of my OG neutrals that I had, loved, and used obviously a bunch because I've got some huge pan on it. I actually think it might be time to let this go, and I did not have any intentions when I started this video of getting rid of some of my OG staples, I suppose, but it seems to be happening with like the Yes Please palette and now this one. This is something I loved, even putting this Shake It Off dark chocolatey brown shade that is a shimmer in my crease, believe it or not. So good, but I think it's time I can let her go. She's much older. She's like a 2016-ish, 2017-ish palette, and I'm not reaching for her, so it's okay to let it go. Okay, now I'm getting in the zone of decluttering. Speaking of, I don't know when I last spoke about this. I know I talked about possibly decluttering this Aether Beauty palette. This one is very neutral, but I just felt like it was only so good. Like, I like some of these mattes, but the shimmers weren't pulling it off for me. I don't ever reach for it. This one is the Desert Sunset palette, if you are curious. I just find that this one doesn't get used in my collection. I keep moving it around thinking, oh, I didn't like this, and I can't even remember specifics, but I don't like it. I really don't like the component. It always gets stuck, and I'm just like, I'm gonna pass this on. All right, I'm just gonna be honest. This Viseart palette is Neutral Matte Eyeshadow Palette. I had to look at the full name here. This is something I reach for pretty regularly. I've actually hit pan on it pretty recently in the lightest shade here. I love this Viseart palette. It is one of my top palettes in my collection. I should probably do a ranking video so you guys know where my head's at with a lot of these palettes that I do end up keeping after the series. So this is absolutely staying. Love her, love her, love her. You know, these are kind of more regular size, and I didn't know if I was going to do it, but I'm just going to go into these. This is the Violent Voss Sun-Kissed Summer Pro Series palette. Ah, dang it. Now I opened it, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's not going to be as easy as I thought. I don't reach for this, and I feel like it's because I don't really like the formula on this. I know some people are diehard Violet Voss fans. For me, this is not something I've been reaching for a bunch. Now I'm sitting here going, I'm seeing those yellows. Should I touch it? Shoot, those are good. And I was just thinking of a yellow look for spring, summer. Fudge sickles. Fudge sickles. Because I am just like, oh, I just knew I was going to get rid of this. Do like a yellow look. All right, that just saved her. That just saved her. Now we gotta find something I do want to get rid of. Okay, so this is the Mally Best Dress Lids Neutrals and Bolds Matte and Shimmer Eyeshadow Palette. This one I recently got from a BoxyCharm, and I think there was like another higher end brand going around that you guys were like, oh my gosh, you keep getting the palettes that are a little less desirable. I actually thought this was pretty approachable, but it was kind of inconsistent, I would say. I'm just sitting here looking at this palette and realizing how much this color story doesn't even speak to me. So I'm gonna, while this is actually pretty fresh and new and looking pretty clean, I'm going to gift this to a friend or family member because this just isn't my jam color story wise either. Let's move it along. I just got this and I keep using it. I used this again this week. I literally just received this in a BoxyCharm. If you saw my recent BoxyCharm videos, you saw me open in the last video this Sinopia Mellow eyeshadow palette. I mean, she's very approachable, but I found that middle of the day, these were not lasting. These were not staying on my lids. Kind of similar to why the Colourpop Deja Brew palette is in the maybe pile, because I like the color story, but they're not lasting. So I'm going to put this over here in the maybe pile as well with this for the moment. Let's talk about Smashbox. I got this in, I believe, a Chic Beauty Box subscription box. This is the Minimalist Eyeshadow Palette Ombres. It has a section over here for like warmer tones and over here for cooler tones. I actually was shocked how much I liked this little palette. I think it would be good for travel too. So for now, since it is pretty new, I want to see how much more use I can get out of this. I'm going to hang on to her. All right. I need to look into the Persona Identity 1 palette. I think is the one you guys said I would probably love. This is messy. This is super messy because this shadow I use all the time. This is Loyal. It is a matte base shade for me. It's a great crease shade to start an eye look. I do that a ton with this palette, and she's messy. As you can see, she gets all over the place. And I use these more bold gemstone colors like the emeralds, the purples. I also love that gold for the lids. Oh, I also like this for the lids. It's kind of an assist palette for me. I don't necessarily do complete looks with this except for every now and again if I want to do like a gold on the lid or a green on the lid or something. And a lot of you guys said you love this formula so much. Check out the Identity 1. So I need to do that. But in the meantime, I'm hanging on to her. Oh boy. These are older palettes, not as old as the Colourpop ones, but these are Essence. And I really have fallen in love with a lot from Essence over the years, and these palettes, I don't even know if they make them anymore. This is the Be Beautiful palette, and this is the Follow Your Heart eyeshadow palette. I reach into these pretty regularly. At first glance, they can look very similar. So when I first talked about these a couple years ago, people were like, it's like the same palette. And I'm like, yes, but no. This one's definitely warmer toned. This one is definitely cooler toned. And a lot of times I will mix and match these because they layer so well together. But what really stood out to me is the formula. The formula is something that is super blendable. It will go into your crease. It will layer on itself. It'll layer with others if you're needing something else to kind of like start an eye look and then go into a more bold. These are great for either working with themselves or other products. Really, really good. I will say I tend to reach for this one more because I'm kind of in a cooler toned phase at the moment. This one is the Be Beautiful eyeshadow palette. I love this. I don't think I can buy this anymore. I love the Taupe Up Shimmer. I think this is great. I love that it has a buff nude shade to start the lid or kind of clean up things. I love these neutrals. If I was going to get rid of one, I could consider getting rid of the Follow Your Heart because I've been less into the warm tones. But since I said I also mix and match them, especially like this shade over here with some of these, it gives it a different dimension, so I would struggle with that, I would say. Let me do some swatches really quick as I'm sitting here staring at them. Let me do some swatches. So I have sat here for a while swatching. This is the warm palette that's over here on the left. This is the cooler palette that's over here on the right and in the white packaging. I have just sat here staring at it. I kind of smudged them, so please ignore that. But this kind of gives you like a little bit more of an idea of how that one is a little bit more warm based, a little bit more red and orange undertones. This one is a little bit more of a neutral undertone over here. I realized how good this shade is. This shade as well, this has a yellow base that this doesn't have. So even though I know they look similar, I do use them. I'm being really picky, I feel like, on why I'm keeping them just because I feel like I need to justify it almost to myself. Less you guys, but more myself. And I'm going to keep both of these because I still think the formula is stunning. It's great. I can't get either of these anymore. So if I'm going to use them, I do believe in using what you have also, not just buying the newest, latest, and greatest. And these, again, are Essence. I mean, I love the line. But there are shadows that I don't like from Essence, so the fact that I like those so much is a big deal. I also love affordable. Speaking of loving affordable, I have two of the mini e.l.f. palettes that I know a lot of people have raved about. I've probably used these less than I feel like other maybe people online talk about. This Cream and Sugar palette I feel like should be right up my alley, but I never use her. Could be because I have so many other neutrals and they're bigger and more on top of the brain. And it's not that they don't perform well. Oof, look at her. Yeah, that one looks really good. I just don't find myself reaching for them. This is the Carnival Candy palette. I love having these little minis to travel with though because they're super easy. Ooh, wow, that's pigmented. Holy cow. Like if y'all are on a budget and you don't want to spend a ton of money, these are super duper pigmented. They have a lot of kick to them for sure. I think they're quality, but I'm not reaching for them, so I'm going to give these to a friend or family member, but highly recommend. It's not that they're not good, it's just that I'm not using them compared to all the other stuff I'm using. But I like them, I will say that. This is the Dominique Cosmetics Unconditional palette. I got this at the last December, I believe, Luxe box with BoxyCharm. And this sat on my vanity for a while, and I thought I would use it more than I did, honestly. Because it's not a bunch of shades I use a ton, but I love her formula. The Dominique Cosmetics line is one of my favorites. So when I do get something from her, I want to use it more than I have this palette. It could be just because the color story isn't speaking to me as much. I have a natural like transitions palette from her that is so darn good. Rave about that. Like, look at that. These spread and blend beautifully. I am noticing I'm going through a transition right now with what kind of makeup I like, and I am starting to use more warm-toned eyeshadows again. So I'm not going to get rid of this yet because it is, like I said, pretty new to my collection, and I haven't given her too many opportunities to use it. So I am going to hang on to this because I love the formula, I love her, and I don't want to miss out on something that I may love as I'm warming back up to warmer tones and more bold makeup because I've been so neutral. Okay, let's bring over the Natashas. Let's also, the liquid shadows, we still have the Colourpop pots that I need to go through. I will be flat out honest. I do not use every single one of these Natasha Denona palettes. I definitely have started to feel a little bit more like a collector with Natasha palettes when it comes to the things that we could get from BoxyCharm, because we would see some of these going around, and if I didn't get it, I would get it in the pop-up or add-on at the time. And some of them, I don't even know if they ever went around in the boxes, but I saw them in like their add-ons and pop-ups, so I did buy them. These are some palettes that I know for certain I bought off of. They're like add-ons or whatever, and they don't have names other than Eyeshadow Palette 5, Palette 11, and this one is Eyeshadow Palette 5, Palette 6. I'm just sitting here staring at them. They did come broken. I don't know if you can tell why they look so messy is because some of the pans came broken. These were not some of her best formulas though, to be honest. I also think these are both all shimmer palettes, aren't they? Yeah, they definitely are all shimmers. Also another one that I don't think is her best formula because I think some of these were hit or miss. Some people got the good formula with Natasha with the Peak palette and some of us got the bad one. And a lot of us got the bad one. I happened to get 2 of the bad ones, so I didn't even get a good one. If I'm going to be flat out honest, I don't really ever reach into some of these. And it's mostly because I don't think the formula is maybe as good, so they're not as top of mind. Let me do some swatching. Okay, so I have been here doing all the swatches. I need to pull back my bracelets to show you. So this palette over here is this one where it's brown, green, brown, green, brown, and you're just almost like, why did they do this? It does make it seem less appealing, and that could be why, but I'm not gonna kid. As I was like swatching this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is stunning. Ooh, this is pretty. Look at this deep brown. These green tones look stunning. I was just like, okay, this is my sign to rediscover this palette. This one's so beautiful. So going to use her. So glad I swatched. And then over here is this palette, which again, I think the blue tosses me. I don't know if it's in the frame here, sorry. So I really like this teal shade, obviously. The browns are a little bit not that great, and the blue isn't so great, but I still made me go, oh man, that teal shade. Oh, that brown's pretty good. I don't know. These 3 a little less, honestly, but these 2 really good, which is probably why this one's fallen off my radar. And as you guys have seen in my collection, I have quite a few teal shades, but this teal is not, whew, that's more of a blue. Look at that. Compared to, yeah, not the same. Look here in my High Tide palette. Again, not the same. There's a lot more brightness in this. So that kind of gives you an idea of where I'm at. So I'm gonna hang on to these 2, and then over here where I've already started messing up the swatches are some of the other palettes from Natasha that I got that I'm just maybe on the fence about. The only saving grace for the front part of this arm, which is the Peak palette, I was saying some people got the great version of, some of us got the bad version of. I got the bad version. I swatched this. I was like, nope. And then I got to the last one, which is the only thing I think that has kept this palette in the running for me as long as it has, is this shimmer shade. It is right here. It is so freaking stunning. I don't even know if you're gonna be able to pick up on camera how pretty it is. That's like the one shade that I like. This one right here. This is the shade I like, and out of this whole palette, nothing else in here works for me. And I already hear people in the comments saying the same things I've said to myself for years, which is I'll just pop out this one shade. And then I never use anything that I do that with. I never do. So, you know what? I'm gonna put this in the maybe pile. I was gonna keep it, and staring at the swatch, I was like, oh, I should keep this one shade. I'm gonna put this in the maybe pile. We'll come back to her. This is the other palette. This is the Coral. What is this called? Yeah, the Coral palette. You saw me get rid of a Coral palette earlier. I swatched that over here, and she's really pretty. And like I said, I'm kind of getting into more colorful, warm tones. So for spring, let's see how she does over here. I already know I love this palette. This is the Anya palette. I purchased a full-size eyeshadow palette from Natasha based off knowing how much I loved this one and wanted more shades similar to, so definitely keeping this. You'll see the other palette that I'm talking about in my bigger eyeshadow palette declutter coming up soon. This one is the Cupid palette. This is the palette that I got like, I don't know, a million times from my BoxyCharms. I got it at least 3 or 4 times, and it looks more of a neutral, at least in pictures and maybe even right now on camera, but once you start wearing it, it has more purple and maroon tones to it than you would think. I'm gonna hang on to her though, because I don't dislike it. It's just not the color story I thought it was, but it's not a reason to get rid of it. So I do use this from time to time. Probably more than I have used this palette here. This is the Jubilee palette. This stumped a lot of people when it went around because the color story is not cohesive. You can't get, I mean, you probably could figure out a way to do a full look. I think I did actually, just out of, you know, being like, oh, I will figure it out. And these are really good compared to some of the other palettes. Whoa. Look how vibrant that is. That's, whew, ooh, that's a summer moment all in herself, at least for me. Oops, oh no, look what I did. This is why I have to be cautious when I am swatching and there's too many things going on. Oh, that's still pulled really pretty. All right, I'm gonna hang on to her. I'm making a mess now though. I recently purchased this LA Girl 4Play eyeshadow palette. This one is clearly in the type that is that similar nail right there. I just purchased this, really liking this because I wanted to try some more affordable eyeshadow palettes from the drugstore and from Ulta. This one is called All Nighter. I'm enjoying playing with this right now, and I bought it specifically for spring summer, so she is staying. So we've gotten through the eyeshadow palettes. Let's come into, I feel like I'm not doing as good of a job. I wonder if I'm going to change up some things. I don't know yet. I know I'm going to get rid of this Huda Beauty Matte and Metal Liquid Shadow. I had a specific look in mind when I purchased this. It looks like concealer, doesn't it? And I achieved the look. I really liked the look. And then I feel like I've used these a couple more times and never again have I reached for this liquid shadow. And I don't do a ton of liquid shadows. I really have to be in the mood or really, really love a product. And I honestly haven't. It's more, I think, on me feeling like, oh, I wanted this. Oh, I want to use it. I achieved the look I wanted, did it a few more times, and I was over it. So sometimes makeup fulfills its purpose that way. I got it on a deal from like a Boxy pop-up or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just declutter this. It's also pretty old now. How long is this? Oh, I thought this was going to be like one of those 12-month things. You're only supposed to have this for 6 months, and I've definitely had this over a year. So going to declutter this. Somehow the Cover FX keeps coming back into my life. This is the Moonstone Shimmer Veil Shadow. I feel like these were a big deal back, 2017, maybe 2018. I got another one after I decluttered some of the ones I already had in my collection. I don't ever really reach for this. It's not that it's not attractive. It's just not a formula or style of makeup, I guess I should say, that I go with. So I'm going to declutter this. It's also pretty old. How long are you supposed to keep these? I don't see a sticker mark on here, but I'm going to assume it's probably 6 to 12 months. And it's got to be getting to the end of its life if it's not already past it. So I'm going to declutter this Cover FX Shimmer Veil. It's just not my style. I remember what I thought of this Kesar Goo. I remember not liking it based off the name Kesar Goo, and I think it was one of those products that I got from one of my subscription boxes, probably a BoxyCharm, that said it could be multi-use, and I was like, no, I can't use this on my face, and that's probably why I was like, no, this isn't working. And I'm assuming, I can't remember, and there's nothing on the packaging to say where you're supposed to put this. I'm assuming you can put it on your lids. But every time I touch into this, it is super sticky, tacky. The color is something that I could work with, but I just don't feel like this is something that is working for me. I just remember talking shit about it. I don't even remember liking it. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of this. Now, some things change my mind about certain formulas, and I fell in love with this Dazzle Stick from KVD. I fell in love with this. I think I got this from either a Luxe or a premium box, and it is, I put it on my knuckle. It is so, so good. This looks dazzling. I mean, great marketing on the lids. It gives you just that little extra oomph to an eye look. Beautiful. Love, love, love this. Want this in other shades. So even though I've said, you know, like sometimes these stick or creamy eyeshadows aren't my jam, certain ones have stood out to me that I have reached for them and I remember them, and this is one of them. Definitely hanging on to her. And if you're curious, the shade is Hail Surge in the Dazzle Stick from KVD. Okay, this is old and I have not used it in a really long time. This is Wet n Wild's Gold Pigment. This is when, do they still even sell pigments? I really don't even know. I used to love to do this with a wet brush, put a little bit in the cap here, it even has a little lid, and then put it all over my lid. I've had this since my St. Louis house, and it's really old and I haven't used it. Why is it still in my collection? I don't know, but it's embarrassing, so I'm just gonna declutter. Ooh, okay, so we got our Stilas here. As you can tell, I'm going around the Colourpop pots because it's gonna be a moment. It's gonna take some time. Next, I have 3 of the Stila glitter. These are the Glitter and Glows. I had to repurchase one because I fell in love with it, but the other ones I'm pretty sure are older and I need to get rid of them. There is the Retro Gold and the Wanderlust. I have had both of these in my collection for a while. I don't really reach for them, but I really discovered I liked them a lot, and that is why I purchased my own. So I got one of them in a Boxy Luxe. So when I say purchase my own, it's because I got it in a subscription box and I was like, oh my god, these are so good. I need another one. The ones I fell in love with were Smoldering Satin. I bought another one of these very recently, I think around my birthday, so probably towards the end of November, beginning of December. I think this is so pretty on the lid, can give it its own moment, goes really well with a lot of my other neutral shadows that I have fallen in love with. Wanderlust is definitely old and I see it chunking and I think it's drying out. Same with Retro Gold. This is the one I got in a subscription box. So throwing these out because they're old and still gonna keep loving and using the Smoldering Satin. Highly recommend if you love a beautiful look on the lids that will give you that shimmer that's not too much but last all day. So pretty. I really like the Lucky Chick line as well. I got this one, the Rose Gold, because it's very approachable. I feel like that's the color we get a lot in subscriptions. This lid topper, and I thought it was really pretty. It did a good job, but for me, Rose Gold is not a shade I tend to reach for a bunch. It's okay. It's not bad. But then I ended up getting their gold version. This is the Gold Mine. Same formula, just a different shade, and I fell in love with this. I love this for like a fall or spring or summer moment. For me, I like to look at makeup a little bit more categorically because I like to put together different looks and get excited for it. And this lasts all day on the lids, really comfortable to use. So while Rose Gold, I just feel like maybe is too pink for my skin tone, I actually really like regular gold. So I'm going to keep this gold one. And since the Rose Gold's a little bit older anyway, I'm pretty sure this is probably getting close to expiring, if not expiring. So I'm going to declutter this one, but keep the gold shade. All right, so these are also those diamonds in the rough that I don't normally like a certain type of makeup, but these have stood out to me in a good way, so I have kept them. Let's see if I still feel that way. So this is the Pinky and Rose Jazz. This is a cream, oh my gosh. Cream shadow stick. Do you see this? Do you see this? It just popped right out. I haven't used this in a long time. It is drier, I would say. Not like super dry, but I like a good copper moment. Like coppers used to be like my fall go-to every year, but I haven't used this in a long time and it is starting to feel dried out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this because I think this probably does have a shelf life of more like 6 months and it does feel, yeah, this feels drier and I gotta be careful around the eyes. So I'm gonna get rid of this. And I also have this shade right here that is so similar. I think that's why I loved these both. This is the Laura Mercier Desert Sand, and this is her Caviar Stick. And you're gonna see, again, this is another similar shade, but oh, this is so much creamier. So much creamier. Plies super smooth and easy. Oh my gosh, the blendability on this Caviar Stick is so darn good. Look at this. This one's staying. Love, love, love. I'd only need one of these anyway, so that's perfect. Okay, y'all, the camera overheated again. So I've been over here swatching my life away. I look like a crazy person in real life. Let's jump over here really quickly to the Beauty Crop. I actually just made this swatch here of this shade, which is the matte shade. And I told y'all I fell in love with it. because I couldn't believe it. And I'm not a person that likes these. I was planning to like not love this at all. It's the Beauty Crop Shadows. It's like a duo. One side is cinnamon, the other side is fudge. And this does a beautiful job. This looks great in the crease. It looks great on the lid. I just love it. I'm a little less in love with the fudge shade over here because I thought it was going to be similar to this, but in a shimmer, and it's more of a red base, and I already have, as we've seen, copper tones here, so I don't necessarily need that in my life, but she's part of the duo, and she does a good job too. Again, this is not a formula, this is not a style of makeup that I usually love, but sometimes you get this really good diamond in the rough that makes you change your mind, and at that moment, you just have to let the makeup gods speak to you, and you're like, okay, I'm convinced. This is good. I'm going to keep using this, because I do really like it. And it's super simple, super simple. I've been sitting here while my camera needed to cool down, swatching a ton of the Colourpop Super Shock Shadows. I don't know if you could see all of them. And I have already decided off camera which ones I'm going to keep, which ones I'm going to get rid of, but I will tell you, I think Ace Beauté, who also has these pots, or at least they did once upon a time, at least probably a couple years ago now, their formula is really good too, and they're still kind of holding up better than some of the Colourpops. So let me go through it with you. I'm going to Declutter DGAF, which was one of my original like introductions to Colourpop. I've hit pan on it. It's something that I wanted to try to use all the way up, but it's so dried out. I know you can add to all of these, you can add a little bit of liquid and it will be fine. It's just, it's not performing, and I'm gonna let her go. She's old. The shade Moonwalk I thought was gonna be really cool, but it's not as opaque as I really wanted it to, and then I remembered I bought something else that I swatched here that I'm going to tell you I kept that is doing what I want it to do. So I'm going to get rid of Moonwalk. Getting rid of Peekaboo. This is one I was really disappointed in, and I actually ended up getting, I think, a refund or a swap out product from Colourpop because this does not show up. This is Peekaboo. It does not show up at all on me, even when it's not a little dry out. It just is not a shade for me. So I'm going to declutter this. Also going to declutter the Pledge Class shade that I really loved a couple of years ago for fall. I thought it was beautiful, but it doesn't really play well on my skin tone as much as I hoped it would. This is it right here, and I've got better from Colourpop and other brands. So getting rid of this. I'm being picky, and that's a good thing when you have this much makeup. This is the Ace Beauté in the shade French Vanilla. Y'all, I'm gonna declutter this because it's not my jam. And I really haven't used this in, oh my gosh, over a year probably. I just couldn't believe she was still creamy enough to swatch well considering she's silver. We're decluttering all of these, but I'm also keeping all of these. So they're all on here. I'm keeping from Ace Beauté the Iced Latte shade. Y'all, this so good. Hit pan on it. Not sorry. It's still super creamy. I've had it for, gosh, years now. But it's right here. Oh, yeah, so it is this one. It is super pretty. Super pretty. Keeping the shade Ladybird, which is the one that I swapped out. This is the one I swapped out for that other shade that I just told you I got, I swap out from Colourpop. Still not my favorite because what I was looking for was a replacement for Going Rogue, which is a very, very old Colourpop single that I'm still holding on to, that I add a little bit of liquid to because I know she looks dry AF right now, but this is like a pearlized base so it's not a matte, it's not a shimmer, it's like a pearlized base that looks so good. I love this. I will use this till it's completely gone. I was looking for a replacement for this when I was getting Ladybird and the other shade that I decluttered. They're still good, so I'm going to keep them. I'm also keeping Wisp, which is the Super Shock Shadow, but I like to use this on the lids now since I don't use this on the face really ever. This used to be my jam. She's really creamy, still looks really beautiful. I'm keeping two of the more teal tones, Nobody's Shocked. The shade Cusp is actually a little bit more green tone, and the shade Sure Thing a little bit more blue toned, and I thought these looked really good and pretty, so I'm going to hang on to these for the upcoming seasons when I really like to pull out these colors, as I keep mentioning over and over. Keeping these orange shades Let Me Pass and Bumblebee. These both look pretty good. This one here is Bumblebee. I can't believe how much I can layer her up. Let Me Pass is definitely more of that burnt orange shade that's really pretty. So gonna hang on to both of these for the fiery looks for this summer. This is Telepathy, and that is this shade right here. It is, oh my God, so good. So good. I'm like, I want to put this on my face right now. And then Ace Beauté, again, I still can't believe how good this is. This is like a cotton candy shade, and it's, is that what it's called? Cotton candy? Yeah, cotton candy. And it's right here on my wrist. I'm not even a pink person, but I can't justify getting rid of it because it's so darn pretty. And then this one is the Going Rogue I was just telling you about. So really cutting down my Colourpop collection. So now let's go through everything in the smaller category of my eyeshadow palettes or minis and see what I'm keeping and what I'm decluttering. Let me just kind of organize it a bit. So to kind of give you a visual overview, this is everything in the smaller palette collection that I am keeping. So you can kind of see where this everything is here. And then I'm going to scroll you down here. And that's everything I'm getting rid of. Well, not my backup battery. But all of this is everything I am getting rid of. But as we remember, over here, where's it at? Over there are some maybes. So let's go through those really quickly. All right, I feel like, dang it. I feel like I have so much makeup and I'm very similar in styles and types. So it's really, it comes down to the formula and if I'm gonna use it. I think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this Natasha Denona Peak palette. Kind of hurts because I do feel a little bit like a collector in a lot of ways with these types of palettes from BoxyCharm, but I don't really love this. I was really only keeping it for this shimmer shade, and I feel like I have so many shimmer shades, and I'm just sitting here looking at all the stuff that I have swatched at the moment, and I'm like, I don't really need this. It's just more of a, oh, this is the prettiest thing out of this whole palette, so that's why I keep it. But I'm not using it, so I'm going to put this in the declutter pile, even if that hurt. These are both very new, and that's the thing that's stopping me. I feel like at the moment, but what do I do? When I reviewed this palette, I didn't think it was a bad palette. I tried it again this week, and I was pretty disappointed that by midday, it was very worn down. And I was using a decent amount of the shadows, kind of going into the deeper, richer hues. So I have so many nude palettes too that I'm like, it has to be quality and good if I'm gonna keep it. But since it's so new, I'm like, have you given this enough time? Maybe I will put this, since it is a bigger palette anyway, in with my bigger eyeshadow palettes, which will give me a little bit more time to play with this. So I'll put this in with the big palettes. That'll give me an opportunity. Okay. And this Deja Brew. I'm so annoyed because I just bought this. And I love the color story. But I'm just disappointed in how these don't last. But I'm going to hang on to this for now as well. But again, if I change my mind by the bigger eyeshadow palette declutter that's coming up, I will pop this in there and either declutter it in there or not. So we'll go from there. Now let's try to put all this back in there and then we will do a final count. These right here are the 26 makeup eyeshadow items that I am decluttering. Some of them are, you know, larger, smaller palettes. Some of them are individuals. Some of them are super shock shadows or mini palettes, liquid shadows, all the things. So I am really excited to see that I'm getting rid of this much, at least, because I feel like maybe I kept a lot of the smaller palettes. And I know I still have to go through those bigger palettes, but it kind of helps to see it in this kind of form to realize, okay, we are making room, we're making headway, and who knows, maybe by the time that next video comes around, I'll be able to even pull through a little bit more, but this is, I think, a really good start. Thank you guys so much for watching and going through this first phase of an eyeshadow declutter with me in this declutter series for 2023, really cleaning out the clutter. And if you happen to be new here, hi new friends, I really hope you take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on the upcoming declutters. I've got some BoxyCharm / Ipsies coming. It's about to get wild, y'all. I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.